Hi everyone, welcome to Insight. Tony has been making a range of very complex drinks over the last couple of months, so I've decided to do something much more simple today, the beloved Moscow Mule. So we start with copper cups, and the idea behind this is that the copper stays cold because it conducts the ice so well, and that keeps the drink cooler for longer. It's a vodka-based drink, so we'll start each drink with 3 ounces of vodka. Next of all, we add a tablespoon of freshly squeezed lime juice. And finally, we fill up each cup with ginger beer. Now, I really recommend this brand Fever Tree because it's spicy, it's low in calories, and it tastes really good. So fill each drink up with that.
And 3 ounces may sound like a lot of spirits, but the cups are so large that it's not more potent.
Gentle stir, and garnish with a wedge of lime.
Very lovely. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Cheers.
That is really tasty. Thank you. I love the spices as we're getting a little bit more in the wintry holiday season.
Yeah.
You can also do this with bourbon instead of vodka.
Oh, I didn't know that. That sounds very tasty.
Yeah. Cheers.
Well, we hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we're coming back from the holiday with a very exciting program of a Mozart piano concerto sandwiched in between 2 great Czech pieces. And we're very excited for pianist Alessio Bax to be joining us for the first time in Jacksonville. Brilliant young pianist, and it's one of, all of these Mozart concertos are among my favorites that he wrote, but this one in C major has just sunlight everywhere and a stunning slow second movement. What is this concerto? How does this, resonate in a unique way to all of his other concertos for you?
Well, the first movement, as you said, is full of sunlight. It has an enormous number of themes. It also features a number of little mini cadenzas where the pianist has to kind of make up what he's going to play before he begins the main themes, which is really nice. Starts with a kind of marching theme, dum, 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 dum,
Which sounds so simple, right?
Yeah, been very operatic. We can imagine one of Mozart's characters, one of his comical characters walking on to that music.
It's right around the time he was writing Figaro, so it almost has that kind of comical nature to it.
Then the second movement, as you said, is very beautiful. A triplety theme, bing, pom, 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 in the winds, and then muted violins playing this very elegant theme. Not so common in Mozart to get a whole movement of 3 against 2 like that, where there are triplets and duplets at the same time, and that gives the music a kind of buoyancy, which is very beautiful. And then the finale is a rondo, a very cheeky theme that comes back many times, full of joy and glee and humor. Great fun, and a lovely piece to sandwich between these other two.
Yeah, and C major is kind of a really special key for composers in this era, whether it be Haydn or Mozart, and a lot of that has to do with the way the harmonics on the strings work in the violins and the
trumpet sound good in C major.
Yeah, right. So very much looking forward to that. Of course, we begin with an overture from Bedřich Smetana's Bartered Bride. But really the anchor of the program, which is after intermission, it's our first program returning to intermissions since before the pandemic, is Dvořák's 7th Symphony. So this is regarded by a lot of people as, maybe his greatest work, if certainly one of his greatest works. When did you first get to know this piece, and what is so notable about it for you?
I agree that it's one of his greatest works. It's certainly, I think, his greatest symphony. I got to know it quite early when I was at university, and I conducted an orchestra which had the hilarious name of Comes To, Cambridge University Music Society Second Orchestra. And with Comes To, you never really knew what was going to happen. So you had to pick pieces that were kind of safe, and I thought this was safe. It's actually very difficult, but so I did it when I was sort of 19 for the first time.
What made you think it was safe? Just because of standard repertoire?
Yeah, because it's standard repertoire. Of course, the string writing in Dvorak is really difficult. It's just as difficult as Brahms. I remember performance didn't go particularly well, but it meant that I got to know it before 6 or 7 or 9 even. And that's meant I've always had a special place for it. And then I've conducted it with every orchestra that I've worked for. Conducted it with Minnesota Orchestra a couple of times, did it with Los Angeles Phil. Of course, I conducted it here on the week that I was auditioning to be music director. That was the repertoire.
Yeah.
We haven't come back to it since. So it's a piece that has really happy memories for me, and it's a piece I've always felt very close to.
That's great.
It's a very serious piece. It's in D minor. It starts with rumbling timpani and low horn pedals. And then this very dark, tragic, serious theme begins in the cellos that sounds a little bit like a rumbling train. And of course, Dvořák was a famous train spotter. He loved to sit with his train timetable and watch the trains go by, which of course was very new in the 1880s.
Right.
And quite classical as well. You know, the themes are worked out very rigorously. There's very close contrapuntal development of everything. Dvořák said he wanted to shake the world with this piece. 1884, he just heard Brahms' Third Symphony and had been inspired by that, wanted to be able to write something that was as weighty and as emotionally important as that.
Yeah.
So we have this very tightly wrought, tragic first movement. And when I say tragic, I think a very good way to think of it, if you know the Brahms Tragic Overture, it's not wailing, it's not sort of emotional, it's not neurotic.
Right.
It's very serious, very tightly constructed, and tragedy as a kind of noble experience of grief or of trauma that's very kind of contained emotion in some way. And I don't mean that it's sort of tight-lipped or anything, but the piece is never neurotic, it never spills over, it's always very contained in its shapes.
This is very consistent with that 19th century romanticism that really centered in Germany, but clearly was massively influential in Bohemia at the time.
The other huge influence is Wagner. In the 1860s, Dvořák had heard Wagner conduct concerts in Prague and had been completely spellbound by him. He followed Wagner in the streets to get a glimpse of the great man. Of course, the great man was tiny; it's just over 5 foot.
Right.
So Dvořák was able to spot him in the streets and was really thrilled by this. And there's a lot of Dvořák's earlier music that we really hear a lot of Wagner, particularly the opening of the Third Symphony, some of the F minor piano trio as well. But in this piece, we hear it predominantly in the second movement. The second movement begins with a very, very beautiful chorale-like theme in the winds. Typical Dvořák, really low second oboe part that makes a very distinctive sound. Hard for oboes to play low, and Czech oboists are particularly proud of being able to do so very beautifully. So lots of C's and D's at the beginning. This very beautiful clarinet theme. But then we immediately swept away by string figuration into something much more romantic and pulsating. And there are a couple of times when the music really sounds very like Tristan and Isolde. Lots of suspensions that have sharp fourths, favorite of Wagner, and then later Mahler, that give a kind of spicy expression to the music. And a kind of ardent yearning the whole way through. String melodies that, for example, there's a moment when the violins and the cellos are left together playing a unison theme that's very reminiscent of the very beginning of Tristan, the cello theme that opens the opera. So that's an incredibly beautiful movement. Again, so typical of Dvořák, very bucolic, full of the sounds of nature, which he loved so much. Full of bird song. You can just imagine the lush rolling hills of the Czech countryside in the second movement. Then the third movement is a kind of Czech dance following on from the Sixth Symphony. In the Sixth Symphony, Dvořák calls the scherzo a furiant, which is a particular kind of Czech dance. And this is very much the same, a typical 3 against 2, slightly off-kilter waltz. A trio that again is full of birdsong and the clarinets and flutes. But something that you can really imagine, a kind of rustic peasant dance, which is terribly exciting. And then the finale is incredibly gothic sounding. If any of you have been to Disneyland or Disney World, if you've been to the haunted house, that 19th century Gothic looking clapperboard house with turrets, always at the beginning of the finale always reminds me of that. Again, very dark at the beginning, very serious, and with one of the most thrilling ends, a very unusual end. The whole piece has been, the first movement and the last movement have been in D minor, and towards the end of the symphony, in the last minute, the music changes to D major. Again, this kind of idea of tragedy being noble, and we have this weird ending, you know, major key, but not very happy sounding.
Yeah.
It's like a kind of hard-won victory over adversity.
Yeah, this isn't Beethoven 5.
Not at all. There hasn't been a kind of journey from darkness to light. It's just major in a kind of baroque way to end the piece in a major key. It's a hard piece to work with. It can sound very shrill. It's a lot of high strings and high woodwinds, and one of the difficulties for the conductor is to balance it and to make it sound beautiful. And I have to admit that there are quite a few moments, maybe 6 or 7 moments, where I alter the orchestration a little bit. Quite often he'll have main theme in the winds with the whole brass section playing sustained chords and the whole string section playing tremolo. You just can't hear anything. So in quite a lot of those places I put the melodies into the horns and trumpets as well, particularly at the very end of the piece when that D major comes. There's this thrilling moment when the woodwinds go ba wa da da up an octave, and if you put it into the horns as well, it's really exciting.
Doubling.
So,
yeah. Is this common with this piece?
Yeah.
Is this something that conductors do?
It is, and I sort of, I'm always very reluctant to do that, but it hasn't worked enough times that I've started to just steal what George Zell does in the Cleveland recording, pretty much.
It's not
verbatim.
It's not a bad lighthouse.
No.
Yeah. Well, that's very exciting. You know, I know this piece. I've never heard it live, I'll admit, but I've listened to it. I remember it was in many a theory class I had and history classes, and these are a lot of new things to think about. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Can you give the last word to Dvořák, who said that when he was writing this piece, he wanted to shake the world, and what was in his mind was love, God, and his fatherland, and that gives you a sense of the seriousness, but the beauty and the love that permeates the whole piece.
Yeah, that's great. I'm very much looking forward to this with the Mozart and a nice full program.
Yes, yeah, I can't wait, and also a bigger string section than we've had all year as well, which is really nice too.
Yeah. And you actually get a break at some point during the concert. You don't have to just conduct straight through.
I know, that's the thing. Everybody loves these short concerts, but it's absolute murder for the musicians and me, because we have to just go non-stop with no breath.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy to have a little bit of a break this time.
Looking forward to it. Anyway, well, we hope you join us on Friday or Saturday evenings in Jacoby Symphony Hall. And we'll also be live streaming the Friday evening performance on our YouTube channel. So please join us however you can.
Thank you. See you soon.
Cheers.